Welcome back to Spanker Inch Garage. Tonight I'm working on the Quad 4 Z26 again. Haven't done anything to it since the last video, where we got it running on the junkyard injectors. I did order up a new set of injectors, so we should be good to go on that. First, this engine bay is filth. I mean, it's just disgusting. So let's pull this thing outside, give it a good wash, and we'll get into working on this engine. I don't really like pressure washing engine bays for water reasons, but kind of nice that cleaned up. All that beautiful bright aqua metallic. Looks really good. Firewall cleaned up really nice. We got to paint that blower box. That's an eyesore. But yeah, for now, let's see if it still runs now that I just soaked the crap out of it. Look at that, the ABS block's actually silver. That's the poop stain that came out of the engine bay. It's a lot of crap. So what happened was, this car was bought brand new in 1994 at a local dealership to me, surprisingly. And it was owned by one lady who drove this as daily. Unfortunately, smoked cigarettes every day, all day in it. And then sometime in late 2001 or 2, she hit somebody and folded that front corner in. And then the car sat at her house until August of 2004, where she donated it to Purple Heart car donation. Just about the same miles on it. They gave her $1,500 for it back then. And so anyway, then it went to a junkyard to get scrapped because they weren't going to fix it. That's what Purple Heart does. They just kill everything. I got a copy of the salvage title here, which I also have the real copy of. But the cool thing is that junkyard owner put this car aside at 116,868 miles, 116,875 on it. So this car has been driven less than 10 miles in 22 years. But big praise to that junkyard owner. He sat this thing aside. He was like, this car's kind of special. I'll probably get another Beretta of the same color at some point. Maybe he'll put the car back together. Well, the guy's like 80-something years old now. That never happened. So luckily I got a hold of this car to save it, but it's kind of cool. This car was really only used for like, it's a 94 and it was wrecked in 02. So it only had 8 years of time on the Pennsylvania streets before it just went to sit in a gravel lot for the rest of its life. So we got a really good base to start from here. Let's get this thing running the way it deserves to be. So I did actually talk to that junkyard owner. Wow, I've never seen a stick shift Z26 come in before. He's had many Z26s come in over the years. Never had a stick shift one before. Wasn't really too aware of the engine differences with the quad versus the V6, but very thankful for him for putting this car aside and giving it a second chance at life. I got the new injectors. I want to pull the rail out, get those in, but I noticed some cracking on the insulation for the wires going to the fuel injectors. I was going to put new pigtails on them, and it looks like to do that I'd probably have to pull the intake manifold. The manifold's corroded to the stud, but luckily I got the stud to come out. So only 2 studs on this, so hope with this one out. There's another stud there, but that's on a slotted hole. That one doesn't look as seized up. Injector wires, they're stuck with. Wow, that's a carbon mess in there. It's weird because the ports are kind of clean, but they got this big carbon ridge right where the intake meets. The valves look spotless. There's definitely a lot of carbon. And the intake is carboned up as hell. Have to see how that port matches up and where all that crap's coming from. If that's all coming from the oil, you know, the CCV, the crankcase vent, I'll probably end up just eliminating that. I don't like seeing that. But anyway, the cool thing is this injector harness is a standalone harness here that plugs in. So I can pull this off, fix this up on the bench, make it real nice. Look at the simplicity of these old cars. 3 wires, 4 injectors. So the splices happen somewhere in the harness even here. But that'll be nice. We'll get this up on the bench and get these fixed up, because look at that. I mean, that was just a fart away from shorting out and taking out the whole bank. So we'll fix that right. PCV, I don't know what they called them back then. I mean, BMW tried this crap with like a cyclone where they'll spin the air and try to get the oil to drip back down into the crankcase from here, and they'll have high velocity air coming through it. That's a lot of carbon for 145,000 miles. Yes, you probably never beat on it, but that's crazy. Another thing that's kind of funny to observe here is all these orange wires. That's how GM did their power distribution back in the day. And there may even be fusible links in that little piece of harness. But there's no like real power distribution block on this car, like a, you know, like a fuse box you'd have under the hood of newer vehicles. You'll usually have like a main lug that all your circuits are coming off of. GM just piled 50 wires onto the starter terminal. That's how they get it done. All right, so I figured out some stuff about the PCV. So what I was thinking was like this thing was sucking 1/2-inch bore worth of air unmetered around the throttle body. And that's actually not the case because you have this heater elbow. There's a small orifice in that. So that's all the flow that PCV gets is what comes through that small orifice. That's pretty small. I think the IAC will compensate for that. If not, you know, I could punch a 16th hole in the throttle plate, but that's very small. I don't think we'll have any running issues with this PCV system all eliminated. It's got a seized up clutch. So I'm just gonna see if there's any refrigerant in this system. I highly doubt there is, but it'd be interesting if there was. It actually had a vacuum in it. I also noticed it's got green dye on the fitting, which sucks. I hate that crap. So AC system has a leak. We'll get into that once we get a working compressor on it. I take back my previous statement. There is pressure in this AC. Now, whether that little bit just came out of my manifold set or it was actually in here, I'm not sure what just happened there. That motor mount angle does not look right. And feeling up here, this motor mount's almost touching the subframe. So I think the upper engine mount has failed or settled over time, and this engine's sitting lower than it's supposed to be. I don't remember these having this downward angle on this mount. I think this engine needs to be up a 1/2 inch or 1 inch. This thing's gonna bang on the subframe and make a ton of noise. But anyway, the reason we're here, this idler feels okay. Crank pulley looks good, but this AC clutch, it's just seized tight. Not too bad. So before I go and order parts, I want to see what's up with this upper motor mount. You can see these bolts are like twisted and pushed back, and it just looks like some general trauma has happened in here over time. This mount's the same as the 6 cylinders, or at least very similar, so it's really bringing back a lot of memories to me. Pretty much have to pull this mount to do anything on the 6 cylinder. We got a bolt jammed in the back of it. Yeah, this mount, you can see that back corner there, it's all torn up. Don't know exactly how, but yeah. That thing's really coming apart. I'm starting to have flashbacks. Some of these mounts were serviceable. This whole lid lifted off, and this bushing was bolted in from the bottom. These are like peened in and not serviceable. And then I'm also remembering that the stick shift cars, the mount is different. This is moved like forward a little bit or something. I was just looking through the other Beretta to see if I had my old motor mounts from that. I don't have them, but let's go check the parts car out back, see if that one is rebuildable. Let's take a look at this absolute beauty. It's funny because this one has damage on the right side, the opposite of this green one we're fixing up. It's the same style on that one, same kind of mount, though this one's in a lot better shape. Maybe we just take the whole mount. This one doesn't look crushed and offset or anything. These are pretty centered up in here. That's weird. I gotta research that. I didn't remember this being a big deal, but I thought I always had the ones that had two studs that come up with nuts. You take this cap off. Probably gonna reuse this piece just because I don't have anything else to put in there, so. All right, there's that turd smuggler. All right, that looks nice. I would have liked to find a new one of these inserts, but in my short time looking around, I didn't see anything. All right, leave those loose for now. That's a completed mount to the best of our ability at the time. All right, the new motor mount is in. I can see that the engine is actually taller now on the passenger side than on the driver's side. Likely the trans mounts are sagged out as well. We'll have to go replace them. Also want to check the passenger side dog bone mount, see if that's any good. This is the lower dog bone on the passenger side. I think this hole is for if it was automatic versus stick or whatever. But now I can get a full 2 fingers between the lower motor mount and the subframe. And with that top mount sagged out, we couldn't do that before. This actually doesn't look too bad, but they're only $3 for new ones, so we'll replace it. I have 2 replacements here. One's a steel arm and one's an aluminum, and they're the same length. I'll probably put the steel one on just because it has less bushing to comply with. This is a huge bushing here. Very soft, made to move all around. Any of you Beretta guys or Grand Am guys or any of those guys remember why they had 2 different ones, please remind me in the comments. I remember seeing these, but I can't remember why. Yeah, I can't remember why they had 2 different ones. I know I've seen them throughout the years. Right off the rip, you can see that this trans mount is all sagged out. Fit my full finger through here. There's almost no space on the top. The rubber's torn up. This one looks easy to change. The rear is back up there. That one's going to be a little trickier. Well, didn't really want to snap that off, but it is what it is. The issue here is the old Rock Auto lied to me. I can already tell. So they sent me this as a front and this is a rear. They're exactly the same. And the front is smaller. I'm pretty sure there's no way that's going to go. Well, this rear mount is absolutely a doozy to change, but I forgot to show you guys last episode. I turned these bronze bushings for the shift cables and they work really nice. The rubber bushings were all blown out. Those shift cables are very hard to get, and this improved the shifting feel quite drastically. Well, that's not cool. So I got this out. The galvanic corrosion between this aluminum sleeve and the steel bolt is horrendous. I mean, that really sucks. But what sucks more is that This insert ain't gonna fit this either. So these mounts may be for like a later, like the 2.2 liter 4-cylinder Beretta or something. Of course, Rock Auto said they'd fit, but they don't. So now I really got to come up with some problem solving here. I'm gonna try to carefully knock one out without destroying it in case we need to reuse it. But I need to be able to get measurements. That came out easy as hell. Yeah, so you can see a pretty vast difference in diameter here. This ain't gonna fly. So I actually did find one out of my other Beretta, but same mount, same bushing size, unfortunately. Though they do have different part numbers, but I can't take that too seriously. No idea what this one's out of. This wasn't actually in my other Beretta on the street, because that one had poly-filled mounts. I think I sold them when I rear-wheel drive swapped it. So we got to find some rubbers. It is Monday Motor Mount Mania, and we got more mounts here than we know what to do with. But this is a good thing. So I bought these on eBay, and they look like they're going to be a direct fit. The years that they say this fits is not possible because they didn't make the car with that transmission in the years that they say it fits. But this could be from the Isuzu 4-cylinder transmission. I couldn't find information whether that would work or not. They look the exact same to me, so I think all this is going to bolt up good. And you can see here why we're replacing them. Look at how offset this bushing is. See how the bushing comes down and then up, where this one is pretty well centered. So the engine sagged about 3/4 of an inch. On the transmission side, so yeah, you can see that there. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw these in. 5032 is the number on this one. I think this is like 5033 or something like that. These are available on eBay. It's about 70 bucks for the pair. Not bad, but you can't get them on Rock Auto or anything else. After an hour of fumbling, this is actually not 100% the right mount, but it's 99%. We need to drill out these two holes just a smidge, and then there's a casting mark on the bottom of the front tab here that's hitting a web on the transmission. And then down here, the GM has more of a boss cast in. This does not, it's flat. So the transmission's hitting right here. We'll take care of that as well, and then we should be there. If I have any more problems with this, I'm gonna risk it, push this bushing out, put it back into the factory bracket. But I think this will be okay. So I got that front mount in. I ended up having to grind and drill 2 holes on that too. And the holes are in the right spot. So I don't know if it's just crappy Chinese casting or they never tested it on a Muncie. Probably only tested it on the Isuzu version and it fit, so they shipped it, whatever. But anyway, now the engine sits level in here. Thing's a full inch higher than it was before. Got a fresh serpentine belt on with the new AC compressor. That all looks good. Shift cables are hooked back up with my custom bushings, all clipped together. Good to go. All the wires are put back where they belong. Look at that. We got an AC clutch that turns. So now I can put a belt on it and actually have an alternator. Let's get this injector harness rebuilt before something bad happened. I ordered these from Motorman months ago, but this is a set of refurbished quad 4 injectors for this specific year. So they're an exact part number match. They said they went through, tested them electrically, rebuilt them, flow tested them, yada, yada, yada. So these should be as equivalent to brand new injectors as we can get for this 1994. But I also grabbed a new set of pigtails so we can rebuild this harness. That's much nicer. Got this harness whipped up here. What I ended up doing was using the ones I bought, and I just extended 2.5 inches on each injector plug. And I think that'll give me enough room to wiggle the rail out, and I can get to these easily and disconnect. The factory harness is really tight. Like, you pretty much got to pull them off just to get the rail to move. But I think now I'll have enough to float the rail out, get to the connections, everything will be nice. So this is the coil pack system for the quad 4s, and I think this is problematic historically, so it's good to keep these in good shape. And you can see this one down here. I don't think you can see that on camera, but there's slight cracking going on at the base there, and there's all this black marks jumping back and forth. I don't think that's all like spark arc marks, but I believe some of it is. So we're replacing that. Luckily, you can still buy this from GM. I got these boots through Bosch, and then I got brand new GM coils for it as well. So we'll pretty much rebuild this whole thing and keep this one as a spare. It does work, but it may cause a misfire at some point. Another thing I am hype on is this top coil cover. So the one we had was just disgusting. It was all pitted and gross. I sent this to a local guy called Powdered Remedies, and he sandblasted this, cleaned it up, and then did a 2-color powder coat on it. So this is actually silver powder coat with a clear coat over it with a black behind. It is extremely slick, looks amazing, did the backside and everything. All right, what's our bets on getting these broken bolts out of here? There's almost nothing left. I got one of these out, broke 2 off. These will get torched and punched. I'm not worried about this side. This side's threaded though. It ain't pretty, but look at the threads on that. They're flawless. The threads in the flange are saved. So I just got to do that 2 more times, and we're looking good. Got all 3 out, so you just get a little cherry colored bolt, and the threads are perfect. A lot of guys would have considered this a full loss, but no way. 15 minutes with a welder and a torch, and you save the flange. Same thing, we'll get the flange glowing here in the corner. That should pop right out. Booyah, baby. See ya. See ya. Beautiful. Good as new. All right, we're getting rid of this oil drain, this oil return drain on the dipstick. I'm gonna weld this hole closed because we will not be utilizing the factory crankcase venting system no longer. So off camera, I put a couple hours into the intake manifold, removing casting flaws and removing casting marks. I just came back from powder coat. Whew. Look at this puppy. That's a good looking intake manifold. So I figured getting a powder coated chrome would kind of be low maintenance because I was going to polish it, and then I was thinking, once it's polished, you know, you got to keep up with that. So this is a chrome powder coat with a clear coat. It should be fairly durable. It should look nice. I didn't want anything bodacious. I just wanted a nice looking intake manifold, nice looking cover. That'll be it for now till we clean up some other stuff under the bay here. Here, going well. So the dipstick dropped in from the top, no issues there. I was able to tuck the injector harness under each runner, so that way all that wiring is under the intake. A little cleaner, a little nicer looking. The map sensor goes on these bosses. I mean, if I was really going like deep on this, I would have cut those off too and hid the map sensor underneath, but we're not going wild on this. We just want a presentable underhood. Well, looks really good. With me washing the engine with some of the parts taken off, and some of the injector issues we had. I didn't want to risk having watered down oil in it. Alright, she's starting to get a little temperature in her now. Now this is my valve cover vent, essentially. No blow-by at all. I think this engine's pretty healthy. Feels really good. So that'll just tuck down there for now until I come up with something better. But she's happy breathing to the atmosphere. Got a lot of crap burning off this header. That's okay. This thing sounds really good. Idle's great, starts great, rev's nice. Not a single misfire. I'll take it. And looks like we got a plethora of lights to deal with here. So airbag, ABS, and check engine. Check engine, I think I know what that is. ABS we'll have to figure out. And man, that idle oil pressure is pretty nice. Alright guys, the Beretta is back. Oh, it's back at least to some of its former glory. The engine is back together and running good. It's up to temperature. Thermostat seems to be working. Cooling fan seems to be working. Oil pressure has dropped off quite a bit now that it's hot. But we still got 20 pounds at idle, which I'm fine with. I don't know what the spec is. Alternator doesn't seem to love charging at idle, but when you rev it up, it does. There's a spare alternator in the trunk, so that may explain that. Bone stock under the hood. Bone stock exhaust. Nothing too exciting to see here. Just want a nice 1994 driver someday, but man, we got a lot of work to get done to get to that point. So anyway guys, we'll wrap up part 2 of this Beretta restoration, whatever you want to call it here. Engine, everything under the hood, good to go. So trans mounts, shift cables, engine, that's all good. So now we have a running and driving Beretta. We got to focus on this front rad support next. We're going to cut that out of the parts car, weld it onto this car, paint it to match. Then we can get into some body work, some suspension work. I'm sure you saw the underneath of it, the control arms, the bushings, everything's just crap. All needs to be gone through. Interior needs a lot of work too. So there's a lot of work to do here. It's going to be a while before I get back to this car. Unfortunately, I got a couple other priorities I need to work on in the shop before we will be back on this one. But at least now it's a good running car. It all functions, so I can drive this thing in and out of the garage, around town a little bit, whatever. Anyway, let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Thanks for watching Spank Ranch Garage. I'll see you next time.